Well, welcome, friends, back to See Hear Love and to our very first episode of our 4-part special SOS Summer of Strength series, where we'll be featuring 4 outstanding women who embody courage and faith, resilience, and expertise in leadership, health and well-being, soul care, and journeying well through grief and loss. And our hope is that our stories and our conversation will strengthen, encourage, and inspire you, our listeners, to live authentically, to live courageously, to live a life of joy and possibility, and to deeply love God and others. And so today we begin this series with our guest and friend. And if you've journeyed with us here at See Hear Love, she's a very familiar face and voice to you. None other than the formidable Jo Saxton. Jo, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.
Well, if you don't know Jo, you're going to get to know her really well in this conversation. Jo is the founder of the Ezer Collective. She's a speaker, a podcast host, a guest TV host, an author, and a leadership coach. And she invests in women leaders to help them become who they are designed to be. So, Jo, so glad you're here. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing all right, thank you. Yeah, not too bad at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought it'd be perfect to start off our SOS series by strengthening our community as they lead and give them the tools to lead well. And you were the first person that I thought of when I was like, I need someone to help us, to strengthen us in this area. So let's start off with some foundational questions a lot of women have when it comes to leading and leadership. So the first one, Jo, so many women ask me, how can I become more confident so I can lead well?
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's an understandable question. And first of all, I want to say that I think you probably want to ask yourself why you don't feel confident. So what are the things? Is it because you don't feel you're skilled enough? Is it a skill thing? Is it an identity thing? Or is it a perception that you can't lead unless you feel a particular way? So that's the first place I'd go. I was like, why don't you feel confident? If it's a skill thing, then you can make a plan for what you need to learn. And you can work out what to read and how to resource yourself, podcasts to listen to, things to engage with that'll help develop your skills. If it's an identity thing, then that's about a confidence which is beyond. Then you'll always be looking for that. So, and that's not to say I don't want anyone to feel bad about that. If it's a sense of identity, then it's kind of retracing your steps with God in terms of what you're called to and what He's given you at this time. And if it's a perception thing, then I want you to know that not any leader feels confident 100% of the time. And that is very normal. And that's okay. Oh, one more thing. It could be a physical thing. You might be tired. You might be tired. It might be hormonal. And I don't say that to belittle it. I just want to give it perspective and framing so you don't disqualify yourself because of how you're feeling on a particular day.
I'm glad you say that, especially as I've been talking. And I had a girls' weekend the other weekend, Jo, and all we talked about was perimenopause and menopause.
and the joys.
Yeah, exactly. It was like the joys of that and how it's impacting how we lead and how we think about ourselves and how we feel. So I'm glad you said that. Like if it, first you have to ask yourself, why, don't you feel confident? If it's an identity issue, a perception issue, or a physical issue, those are good things for us to take a pause and kind of do a little bit of inventory on how come I feel really insecure about stepping into a leadership role or stepping onto a board or taking that job as a director or, right?
Absolutely. It's crucial that you identify.
Yeah, that's good. So identify. Second, how can I own my own voice? I know we say that. People are like, I don't even know what that means. Some people are like, no, I really know what that means because I don't feel like I own my voice, my space, and my experience. What encouragement would you give to a woman who's like, how can I start or be confident in owning my own voice?
Yeah, I would say this is the question that I get more than any other from women leaders all around the world. It's about your voice. And it's one of those intuitive things where even if you don't know how to describe it, if you haven't got it. That you feel uncomfortable, that you're not showing up fully in the way that you've been wired with the gifts that you've been given or you may feel your voice isn't welcome or it's costly to use it. That again, I would say, and the word voice comes, that Latin word is where vox and vocation and all of those are come together. I would ask what your gifts are, what you're wired for, what you're called to do. And sometimes when I would say the problem with your voice isn't your fault. And the dilemma with this is some of our reasons for us not owning our voice is because we don't see others doing what we're inspired by. We don't see other women leaders. We don't see other believers doing those things. And so it can make you second guess. It can make you second guess because let's say in your church context, you don't see other women speaking. It's like, well, maybe I should be doing this and I'm not sure and I don't know how I do it. And before you know it, you're kind of crawling out and eliminate yourself. Or in your company and there aren't any women in the C-suite and you see them in mid-level management, but you don't see them in the C-suite. And so you begin to think, maybe I'm a bit shrill for even wanting it. And so I would again encourage you in your research to look beyond your immediate sphere to see who's doing the kinds of things you want to be doing, just to help validate it in your mind. And then I think for me, owning my voice has been a journey, and it's been a journey I've had to revisit in different chapters of my life. What is my voice as a single woman, as a married woman, as a mother of young kids, as a mother of teenagers and midlife, all of those things. You do have to use it though. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to own something you're not even acknowledging is there. So you're going to have to participate with this. If there's damage that's been done, and when I say damage that's been done, if you've been in environments that constantly invalidate your presence, invalidate you showing up, then those places aren't going to help you own your voice. And you're going to, and it's not realistic for everybody to walk out of a space straight away, but you need to make sure there are environments where people want to hear what you have to say, or want to receive the contribution you make, because that will build your confidence and help you own your voice. There is an element of the voice thing which is internal. There's an element which is environmental, and you do need both to help.
That's really good. Here's my question, because I've had this conversation with a number of women, even myself, over the years.
Uh-huh.
When, how do I ask this? The question comes up is, as a woman, how much do you expend energies to fight a system that doesn't support you with the hope it will change, or leave? You know what I mean? Especially in ministry, there's always this hope, like, one day, oh Lord, it's going to change and I'll be at the table and there will be women pastors and there will be women leaders within the church or whatever, the context. And yet I've seen women stay for so long and nothing has changed. And they've said,
Absolutely.
I'm being faithful and I'm persevering. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, because sometimes I feel like people should leave, and sometimes I feel should people just stick around and wait and see if the change happens.
I have had this conversation again with many people, and in my younger years, I used to say to people, well, let's see if you can see where you get to on. And now I just say leave. And here's why. Here's why I'd say leave. And I'm not saying leave immediately. I'm not saying leave badly. But if you're called, let's say you believe you're called to be a pastor, and you're in an environment which doesn't endorse that for whatever reason. I'm not even questioning the legitimacy of that. I'm just saying you're in an environment, let's say you feel called to speak, and that's just not part of what they're doing. They've told you where they're at. Why don't you believe them? Question is part one. Secondly, I would ask you to say, is your call to argue with them about it, to persuade somebody, or to do it? If your call is to do it and it's a closed door, acknowledge it's hard. And I think sometimes we have really good conversations with people, but in the end, a yes is a yes, a no is a no, and a maybe is a no. So I think I'm not saying do it immediately, but I think you probably need to ask questions in those environments that will give you concrete answers. And when I say concrete answers, time bound. So they're saying, this isn't something which people are comfortable with yet. Do you see that happening in the next 6 months? Do you see it happening in the next year? Do you think it's never going to happen? What would you suggest to me in this environment? Because this is the thing I believe I'm called to, and I'm trying, because you want to be faithful, but are you being faithful to God or the rules of that environment? They're not always the same thing. Are you being faithful to the call that you believe that is placed on your life? And I think sometimes we get a little American Idol about it. We expect to be picked and chosen, and that somehow validates it. And it's like, people are all doing the best they can and working it out, but you have a responsibility to be faithful with what you've got. And suddenly your call has become persuading people that you should be there. That wasn't the original call. The call was to do the thing, not to tell people. You had to do the thing. And it is difficult. It's a challenging one because I want to remind people that I'm not saying don't stay on one level. I know I just said my recommendation is leave, and I understand, and I know the cost of that. But if you can stay in that environment and not get bitter, not get accusing, not get judging those leaders, not try and steer every conversation to your right to do something, then sure, stay. But the thing is, when you are constantly turned down, that has diminishing returns on your soul, on your attitudes, on your well-being. It's not like you're static. You start getting defined by the disappointment of the no again and again and again. In any other job, Melinda, any other job, you applied for a job in media, they said no. You're not sticking around waiting to see if they say yes. So shall I come back tomorrow? You know what you're doing? You're going and reassessing whether the skill set matched and looking in other places. Why do we do this to ourselves and spend years? And we call it loyalty. But loyalty to what? And I think sometimes when we've waited a long time, we dig deeper because it's like, I deserve this now. And it's like, yeah, you do, but maybe it's not going to be there. Not in that environment. And I think we might need to accept it, grieve it, and then put yourself in environments which welcome your calling, because you might be wasting time when, the calling is hard enough as it is. There's still the training, there's still the development, there's still the building relationships. And you put all your capital in a place which won't receive you when you need to be investing that in a place where you can actually get on and do the ongoing part of your calling, not just the getting through the door. And I think when we spend our times trying to break glass ceilings, we forget the concussion we can get along the way.
It's good.
And I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but I think it's a lot to ask of yourself to be the one woman in the room of a sea of men and women who don't agree with your call, that you're going to change the culture of that space, because they don't want it to be changed. It's where they have landed theologically, prayerfully, whatever. You may not agree with it, but that's where they're at. And it may be healthier all around to bless them and find a place where you can go.
So good. That is really helpful. I think our listeners, Joe, are like, thank you for giving me the permission. Because I feel there's some people that are staying there and they should not be there. Yeah. And for all the reasons that you've been saying. And I feel like you've just given them permission and a way to say, you know what, I hear you and I think I need to go. It's actually been like soul killing by staying here.
And may I give a warning? I have met many a woman leader who was a fired up, passionate woman who years later, because of the erosion of something like this, is actually not in a healthy space. And so now it's almost become a self-fulfilling thing where it's actually not that environment's fault, because they said their no. It's not theirs anymore. Right. Honestly, and we want to blame them and say you're this and that and the other, but actually you're an adult and you're grown and you have agency, and you stayed in a place which didn't welcome you and it eroded your soul, and now the bitterness and the sorrow and the feeling like you've missed out because other people who were peers with you are further along. Actually, did you participate in that? It's not that it's not redeemable, but I've seen people's leadership gifts come out sideways, and people get real frustrated in that. And I just don't want that for people. I wouldn't want that for a man or a woman. Actually, it's not even. That's just about leaders. Period. That's not even a woman in leadership thing. That's just a leadership thing. That's a human relationship thing. We wouldn't encourage anybody to stay in a relationship where that place wasn't going to commit to them, or where that person wasn't going to commit to them. That's all this is. It's almost like it's a big deal, but it's also not a big deal. It's a shut door, you move. That's it. And then it's in your rearview mirror, and it's not hurting you anymore. And it's not damaging you anymore. And it's not costing you anymore. But for as long as you keep staying and trying to make someone choose you, it is actually hurting you. It is actually damaging you. Yeah. And you are still, the irony is, and you're still not doing your calling. So you don't win.
I'm just sitting in this. I hear you. And this is good to hear. It's hard to hear. But I mean,
it's hard to do. It is hard to do. and it's tears and it's painful and you might need to go talk to somebody, or, you know, and I know many a woman who stayed in an environment too long. I think there are times when I look back on my career when I stayed in places too long in the hope that, or we were all part of this thing and I thought we were all moving in the same direction. To a point, yeah.
Wow.
Your soul is worth more than that, friends.
That's good.
Your call is worth more than that.
Yes. Your soul is worth more. I think so many women need to hear that. You know, so many women, dynamic, amazing women, Joe, I know, have just... I've seen the, like, light and passion fade because of the environments that they've been in and just have not made the decision. But I also like the idea where you're like, you have agency. You're an adult. If it's not working for you, if it's killing you, then don't stay. Like,
exactly.
It's hard work to find another job or figure it out. But I would rather do that than stay in an environment, a situation that's killing me, where I go home, I'm exhausted and not great in any, you know, part of my life. It's good. So good.
Yeah.
On that, this is a perfect segue because I know, let's talk about top 3. You know, I was just saying I was at a girl's weekend away a few weekends ago and trying to navigate a lot of the challenges and realities of our leadership as a woman. And there was a ton of them. So many challenges. But for you and your experience as a leadership coach in the leadership space, training so many people, meeting with so many women across North America and the world, Joe, what would you say are like our top 3 challenges as women in leadership and your thoughts and advice on that? Or top 2? What would you say that you hear over and over again are what women are like, these are what really hinder me or are the challenges I lead?
I think there is something about owning our calling, the scope of our calling that we haven't fully embodied. Maybe, and so there's a conflictedness in that I see, a conflictedness about what I'm called to do, what I do with ambition, all of that kind of stuff, vision. And when we don't embrace the fullness of even our dream, like even if we don't name and acknowledge it just messes with us a little bit. I think there is a weird thing we have to work out around scarcity, because, and I think it relates to power as well, because I often describe this, and I think we may have talked about this before, about like sometimes it feels a bit like a game of musical chairs in certain professional environments where there is lots and lots of gifted, talented people and 1 opportunity, 2 opportunities. I mean, that's true in any job application. It's true in ministry settings, whether we like to say it or not. It's true. Like a conference can only have so many speakers. It can only have so many worship leaders. It can only have, there are so many book deals available, and there are many talented people, and it can just create. And I know, it's not that I don't doubt that there is a God of abundance. I know and believe in a God of abundance, but I'm talking about environments which are deliberately scarce, because God is handing out all his gifts, but all these opportunities that are coming are run by people. I just don't know how to put it any other way. And what that means is that there we are doing this game of musical chairs, which is a fun game to play when you're a kid and it's just a plastic toy, but you do a dance so that you get chosen, and you work more than you should, or you try more than you should, and you might elbow a couple of people out the way, and you won't share opportunities or wisdom or insight and knowledge with another, because actually to bless them is going to cost you. To celebrate them is going to cost you. To affirm their gift, to put their name forward, means you don't get something because the pickings are slim. And on one level, that could make us all feel like we're terrible people, but we've all got bills to pay. We've all got kids to raise. We've all got pensions to work towards. For those of us who are single, we have needs which are as valid as our married peers. We've still got bills to pay. We're all looking after family members. We're all doing the best we can. And we've got career goals that we want to see fulfilled, regardless of our marital status, and they are equally valid. So who gets the seat at the table? And I think it sets us up in vulnerable ways. I think it's just hard. I'm not sure there are any easy answers to these things. I think some of the dilemma with the challenges that women in leadership face today is that there aren't easy answers. There aren't a what do I do? It's more, how are you going to navigate this complexity? How are you going to navigate the fact that that in different seasons of life, there are limitations and there are different opportunities. How are you going to navigate the fact that you have a voice, but it's a real struggle to own it, and somehow different chapters of your story impact your voice in different ways? How are you going to navigate that? Yes, God has called you, he's chosen you, but he's also called and chosen them. And also you're in environments that maybe that thing's in today and that's on trend today, and somehow you've got to lead in the midst of that. How are you going to navigate the fact that actually the only way we change a culture is if we all keep on investing in other leaders, but to do so costs you a little bit of you. I think that those are the things I'm seeing again and again that we just have to handle. What will you do with envy? What will you do? And if you, because here's the other thing, Melinda, sorry, I'm rambling now.
Good. A little. It's good. But making notes.
If you don't own your gifting and your calling, it comes out weird when you recognize on how you handle power.
Okay.
Because if you always feel inadequate, if you always feel insecure and all of these things, those feelings don't automatically go away when you have opportunities. They're still there. But they will, and they might not rear their head in the same way as they did when you were waiting for that opportunity, but they will rear their head when somebody else who's as talented as you walks in the room. The next up and coming. Because you're like, I still didn't get mine properly yet. So why am I sharing this with somebody else? You know what I mean? I've only just got here.
Yeah.
And it cost me blood, sweat, and tears to get here. So why am I sharing this opportunity with somebody else? You know, maybe the best thing they can do is learn the way I learned. Well, not really, because the way you learn has left you traumatized. So, do you know, do you know what I mean? It's not ideal. But sometimes we won't acknowledge the power we have to change things.
Wow.
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard.
You know, when you say this, you know, Joe, I'm thinking about for myself, because there's a part of me, I'll be honest, where I'm like, I have worked so hard for 25 years to get where I am. Actually, saying that makes me feel exhausted, but, you know, it was like 22 and a half decades to get where I am. But, you know, there was a change, maybe it was launching See Her Love, I don't know when, but there was a change in me where I was like, but I don't own any of this. Like, it could be gone in a second. Plus, there were other, and I think for me, Joe, I had some great women ahead of me that gave me the opportunity. So because it was modeled to me, it's a lot easier for me to then model it now. Do you know what I mean? Like, I received that from my mentor, Lorna, in media, who said, oh, wait, I'm going to make space for you, Melinda. You go and do the report. You write the script. You go speak on my behalf. Like, and people were like, she's only like a Gen Xer. How have you given her the platform to speak? And I remember Lorna was like, no, she needs to speak. So now it's like, it feels easy for me to say, you know, come women on the show and actually take over hosting, or why don't you go and speak and I don't need to, or, you know what I mean? Like, I think there is that part of that when it's modeled well, it's then easier to then choose to do, because I'm like, wow, absolutely, you know what I mean? And so I think it's a call for women. Like, if you're gonna, you know, especially at this stage and age for me, it's like, now's the time where I'm thinking legacy. I've done my run of a good, I mean, not that I'm ending, Joe. I'm like, I've done a good run of 25 years. You know, I'm just saying it's now where I'm thinking I need to open up the opportunities, you know, for others. But it's not, there's some moments I'm like, yeah, like, how did she get that gig and I didn't, you know? I mean, that's just the honest truth, you know? And so I get that. And I've seen it with other women, the scarcity mentality, but I think that's so important what you said about having that check about then your use of power, how you lead and how you use power in that space. I wrote that down. That's big. That's really big.
I think it's our... I remember someone asking me years ago saying, you know, we talk about money, sex and power. What do you think women leaders have to watch for? And I said, well, all of them, but power. Because, you know, when I was younger, I had lots of people teach about money and, you know, the love of money. And lots of, oh my gosh, so much stuff about sex. It was like the obsession. But no one really talked about power.
Yeah.
No one really talked about, and which is a shame really, because those other two are massively impacted by power. And power plays a massive role in sexual dynamics and in financial dynamics. And in the relationship with both. Power has a huge role. And so we don't know what... No one talked about what how power can consume you and what it feels, what powerlessness does to you. I have seen really godly people take people out in the bid for power. It's weird. It's weird, but it's true. Because it's been left unchecked. Because, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why we're warned against selfish ambition.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The warnings are often selfish ambition in the Bible, not about ambition per se, selfish ambition.
Yeah. This is good. I think, even for myself as I'm taking notes and our listeners, it's like there's some good things we're saying here, Joe, that are going to need some time to just take a pause and think about it. Because even like as an inventory, as a woman leader, here's something I've been thinking about, as far as leading as a woman. And again, I'm saying specifically because I'm talking for myself. But one of the challenges I hear from a lot of my girlfriends in leading is that I don't know how to lead well at home and at work because something always will give on either side. And they're like, so when I'm leading really well at work, home life is crumbling. And when I'm doing really well at home, it's like I can't do my work and lead well at work. How do I lead well in both, or will I ever be able to lead well at both? Is that my reality that I can't do both well, or am I missing a tool on how to do both well? I've got kids, I've got a husband, or I've got family if I'm single, and I just feel that I'm called to lead. There's many days I just don't feel like I'm doing it well at all in any place.
Yeah, and I think that's a common feeling. In those moments when I do have those feelings from time to time, I step back and I think it's the inventory again. Is everything that you're trying to do, is it dependent on you? Like, are you trying to do too much? Mm-hmm. It really takes a village to raise a family. It takes a village to be a leader, which means regardless of our marital status and all of that stuff, or kid status, we need a village. So I say this to single women leaders: you still need and deserve, frankly, a village of people in and around your life, accelerating what you do. Married women, you still need a village. Women with children, single or married, you still need a village. Who's in your village? And some of the things in the village may be services you get. Maybe you can't cook. Rather than feeling like you're the biggest failure in Christianity, can you just get help?
That's me.
Do you know what I mean? Is it a meal service? Is there... And obviously there is a degree of whatever our financial realities are, but are there people who are really good at it where you can swap skills? Is there a meal train? Is there somebody who loves to cook? For them it's a massive gift, but often we don't know these things because we don't share our vulnerabilities. Maybe you're great with money and your sister friend there is terrible with it and does not know how to build a budget, doesn't know what she needs to be thinking of. Can you share that wisdom? Rather than us, I sometimes sit down and even when I look at my own expectations, I'm like, I'm sorry, Joe, you're expecting to be amazing at all of these things. I mean, who are you, God? No. Okay, then. So, do you know, so you need to give yourself a break. So that's one thing, our expectations. The other thing is, have you said yes to too many things? And what do you need to say no to? And I think we need to do inventory on that stuff. I notice in myself, things just creep in. They creep. And whenever I say I'm not going to do something for an amount of time, I tend to lengthen the time because it's often more than I realize. I realize it's I need more time saying no than I realize. So are you saying yes to too many things? And sometimes it's an indicator that there's a shift that needs to happen. I don't believe we can have it all at once. I don't. I believe you have seasons and there are different emphases in the season. So I think it's just to be aware of the season that you're in. If you are raising your children with somebody or your child with somebody, have you had a conversation about who's doing what? Are you over-functioning and them under-functioning? Is there help you need to ask from your community? So that you are, the village is still playing its part in some way. And I would ask you what role guilt is playing into your commitments.
Oh.
Like, what role is guilt playing? Because you feel you've got to be there. Because there are times when I'm like, I've over yesed things because I feel bad about the no's I've said.
Wow.
In either bucket. I've said too much, I was like, oh, my family need me, so, oh my gosh, work, I'm so sorry, I should just do this. I'm like, no, I didn't, no. But again, I think that's a live one. Some of these things aren't things that we arrive at. We get to a place where we arrive, where we no longer have to wrestle with these things. You just look at this chapter and say, what's working and what's not working? And why? Is it a challenging time? Is it that, there are things that are surprises and things you don't expect? That's life, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Are there we can't schedule people our key relationships needs. We can't. But I want to ask you to pay attention and then see prayerfully what you need to say yes and no to in that moment.
See, that's so good because again, depending on family of origin, watching our mothers, it's the culture. We have become a lot of yes women. Yes to this at church, yes to everything. Yes. And then, and I think I love that, the over-functioning and under-functioning. I mean, these are conversations, if you do have a partner, spouse, you need to have these conversations, expectations of what can be done. Because I've had girlfriends, Joe, who are like, I do it all. I said, well, where's your husband? Like, what is happening here? Why can't he pick up the kids? Or why can't he make a meal at least once or twice a week? Why can't he, like, you know what I mean? I'm like, why are you doing it all?
Yeah.
You've got a partner.
Yeah.
So that's also a good conversation to have. And I think, again, like what you said earlier, hey, ladies, you've got agency, you've got choice. You've got to make decisions and speak up for the help that you need. I think that's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's really good. Well, on that note, you have, and I like this on your website, the 5 relationships every leader needs. You don't have to give us the 5, maybe the top 2, but I think that's good because you just start talking about you need a village, to lead. And so what would be for those who are like, okay, maybe I don't have my persons to help me in this. What would you say would be some key relationships that every leader needs right now as you're leading?
A place to fall apart. And a place for fun. And I'm hoping that your significant relationships are places that are safe enough for that. But I think depending on the leadership spaces that we're in and the struggles that we have, you might need to find a work-related support group or a professional that will help you. I have found therapy really helpful for me professionally, actually.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, most of the things that I particularly in the pandemic era, most of the conversations we've had have concerned career. It might be you need a coach for a little while, and that, but a place to fall apart and a place for fun, I would say, are huge. And if you're not having fun with the people you're doing life with, you know what I mean? If you're not having fun with your roommates, your friends, your family members, then there are some questions there I would invite you to ask of yourself. What's your why on that? What's your why? Why aren't you having, if you don't have friends, why don't you have friends? Yeah, now some people like to live alone. Game on. But do you have key relationships? Do you have a place do you have a people? When I say place, do you have a people that you have fun with, that you enjoy? And that, for those of us who have, who are raising kids or are married or whatever, are you fun? Any fun there? And if not, what are you doing to support? Because there are, chronic illness, chronic struggles, all that kind of stuff. But I just want to invite us to be curious about those spaces because you need a place where you can laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? The laughter is the best thing. Like sometimes I know this sounds ridiculous, but sometimes I'll go up to Chris, who is so opposite than me. And I'll look at his face and I'll go, I start fake laughing. So even just thinking about it, because it drives him crazy, because he's so opposite than me. He's serious, and I'll just go up and go, I think we need to laugh. And I fake laugh, and it absolutely makes him so upset. But within like 2 minutes, he's laughing at me, trying to make him laugh. We laugh and that's one of the things that I find with my, with Chris, but also with my girlfriends. I'm very intentional about hanging out with girlfriends because it feeds me. And I know so many women, Joe said, I don't have a community. I don't have fun. It's like, well, how can you do life if there's laughter within it, or you're seeing the joy in things, or making fun of yourself with people who you trust, you know, because if you can't laugh at yourself, who can you laugh? You know, I mean, just the things I've said or done, and I'm like, oh, I need somebody to, you know, laugh about it. But I really love that, you know, the two relationships or places, you know, that a leader needs is a place to fall apart and a place to have fun. And what you're saying is place, meaning your people, your persons to do that with. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Well, Joe, anything new recently that you've learned as a leader? Is there any new tip that, I mean, because you've been doing leadership for so long, I always like to say, is there something new that has come to you in the last little while that you're like, whoa, that's actually really good for me?
This will probably sound quite heavy, but what I have realized over these past, I don't know, few years, is I didn't realize how formative disappointment can be, and how formative jadedness can be, and how formative even cynicism can be. And I don't know whether this is a reckoning for those of us who are Gen Xers, or whether this is the midlife phase, or just the realities of all the pandemic stuff. But I've had to, in my podcast with Steph, we're in a series where we're talking about honest leadership and asking us, and it's just, you can just get on when you're leading, can't you? You can just get on and do and do and do and do and do. And I've just had to stop and think, you know what it was? I was talking to a former pastor who I used to work with about 10, 12 years ago, and he was a wonderful boss. But the church we were in there was a lot of dysfunction there, and we all, including him, ended up leaving. And he said to me, any regrets? And I said, you know, the only regret is that I wish I'd given myself more time to heal, because there were a number of professional explosion that happened over a short space of time, some to do with that church, some to do with other spaces, and I carried on. And some of it was coulda, woulda, shoulda. I had, you know what I mean, the family needed certain things, needed to earn some money, you pick up and you carry on. But there are parts of that era that are still demanding a voice and demanding a day, and I think I realized that, and it's not like I didn't try and attend to things, it's just that I recognize now that disappointment is formative. Do you know what I mean? We talk about spiritual formation and when the habits that fashion that make room for the Lord. What does the habit of being perpetually disappointed do to you? What does the habit of being perpetually jaded do to you? And I think that's what and what does it do to your leadership? What does it do to your vision? What does it do to your sense of purpose and calling? And to bring it back to the beginning of our conversation, what does it do to your voice?
Yeah. No, I'm thinking about that.
And that's the thing I'm weighing.
Yeah, no, I think that's good.
And I'm making space for.
Yeah, well, and you know what? I've been in rooms with people who have been perpetually disappointed and what they have become. Like, it's, wow, it's good. It's really good. Any last words of encouragement, Joe, for a woman who's like, okay, this was really good. I'm leading. I'm not doing it perfectly. There's a lot of struggle, but I have chosen to keep leading and, you know, pushing in. Any encouragement to her that you'd love to share?
I want to just say, I think the thing that that I'm reminded of is the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases, and his mercies don't come to an end. They're new every morning. And so the beautiful thing is, as we're working this out, and as we're seeing our imperfections, or seeing our deeply riven things, or whatever, or seeing the excitement, there is a God who is every day gets up with us, every day, doesn't fail to show up, doesn't fail to be with us. We may not always feel it, we may not always see it, but that doesn't mean he's not there. And I think that's what gives me hope in leadership. That's what makes me think, you know what? Yeah, keep going. Not because you have to, not because everybody needs you to, even if those things may be true, but you can keep going because God is with you, and he won't stop being with you. And he might want you to sit down and rest, but if he does, he'll sit with you. You know, I think that's the beautiful thing about us leading, whatever our space, whether it's a church space, whether it's in the corporate space, whether we're entrepreneurs, whether it's in our home and community, whatever our area of influence, God is with us. And that means something. That doesn't, and it means more than we should be productive and achieve for him. It means he is with you in every part of it.
Beautiful.
And that's a good thing.
That's a great reminder. He is with you. I really appreciate that. Joe, thanks for joining me today. I always come away feeling motivated, inspired, and ready to take on anything, well, most anything that comes my way after I chat with you. So thank you so much. It's always so good
to
be with you. And thank you, See Her Love community, for joining us today. I hope you were strengthened today, that you feel more equipped to lead with confidence, and that you have more tools to help you. Know that God is with you. His Spirit gives you the power, love, and a sound mind to lead. Again, God is with you. And as you lead, know that you are seen, heard, and deeply loved by God. Thanks for joining us.